Welcome to Polymer Clay TV. Today I'm going to show you how to use the beautiful Bollywood mold to make a really cool plaque for your wall. I'm going to do this in quick motion a little bit because otherwise it was really long just watching me push clay into the mold. So here I'm going to use warmed up and conditioned clay. This is Sculpey Soufflé. And I'm just going to start by flattening out a piece that's the right size and shape to fit into the mold. And the mold is a little bit soft, so you're going to just want to sort of wiggle and push the clay into all of the extensions on the sides, because there are lots of little pieces that stick out on the edges of the mold. So you can see I'm pushing and wiggling the clay out into all those cute little parts that stick out on the sides. And just make sure that it's all shoved down in there so that you pick up all the textures. And then I'm going to bake on this glazed ceramic tile. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the mold and stick it right down on the tile. Next, I'm going to take some translucent clay and my Sculpey Faces mold and use the small face in the middle to create the face. Just make a shallow mold and stick it right on there. When you bake it, it's going to stick, so you don't have to press too hard and get rid of all of your texture. This is Pearl-Ex in Aztec Gold, and I'm just lightly touching my finger into the cap. I like to shape the pigment into the cap so that I have a little to work with, and then open it up and just use my finger. So I'm just touching the high points all around the edges so that you can see the details. I'm going to use another color. First I'm going to stick some rhinestones in there. So these are pointy back glass rhinestones. Some are Swarovski, others are Preciosa. I mix them together, I don't really care, but make sure that they're made of glass. And the tool that I'm using is my own made-up tool. I like to take a piece of fun tack, which is the blue stuff that you can use to hang a poster on your wall, and I take a little piece of it and stick it on the end of an unsharpened pencil, and then I can use it to gently pick up and place stones where I want them. So that's what I'm doing here, just placing the stones in the little excuse me, the little parts around the edges that look like they're like raised dots on the edges of the mold. So I'm using blues and greens and turquoise colors because they'll contrast nicely with the purple background. Then I turn the unsharpened pencil over and I press the stones in and make sure that they're caught by clay all the way around, because if they aren't, they could fall out after baking, and you don't want that to happen. Now, alternatively, you could use another kind of stone, such as an acrylic stone, after baking and use a glue to glue them on. But I prefer using the glass stones before baking and embedding them in the clay. So they're all on there, and I'm just going to press them all in, excuse me, with the back of my pencil. Just making sure that they're stuck in there really well. And there's my contrasting color. It's Pearl-Ex blue-green. And just a little bit more detail around the stones and on some of the areas of the face, such as the cheeks and the eyebrows, to just bring everything out and give a little more harmony here, because I used blue stones. So I'm going to use this blue color to bring it all together. And that's the Aztec Gold. This is a Christie Friesen tool. It's WIA, which I can't remember what the name of that tool is, but it's marked WIA. So on Christie's website, you can find these tools. And what I'm doing here is I'm adding a little more detail to the face, because when I pressed it on and put powders all over it, I smushed the lips and the eyes a little bit. And this is also another way to change a mold slightly so that all your pieces that you are molding don't look exactly the same. So I'm just poking around the face here, adding a little bit more detail, smoothing some areas and making the nose stick up a little bit higher, making the mouth look a little bit more smiley just by mushing around the pieces of the mold and giving it your own little flair. Once you have everything the way you want it, you're just going to put this in the oven for 30 minutes at 275, which is the recommended baking time for the souffle clay. This is my background. I'm going to use some Versamagic chalk ink, and this is just a tile, it's a sample tile of countertop veneer that I got from a local recycling center. So I'm going to use some punchinella and the ink and create just a background. There are 22 different kinds of punchinella available at the shop at Polymer Clay TV, and it gives it just kind of an aged effect to do it with the ink like that. And I'm just going to use a rag to wipe off the ink from the punchinella, because you don't want to let that sit because it is heat set. So first I did put the background in the oven for 5 minutes just to set the ink. And now I'm using Distress Ink by Ranger, and I am distressing the edges. And I keep the soot black around for this purpose. You can also use other alcohol inks if you wanted it to be in a color, but I think that decorating the edge like this gives it a really nice effect. And I'm just using a makeup sponge that I got at the dollar store. And then we're going to use some StazOn ink and some stamps to create a little more background for the piece. So I'm just going to use my clear stamp on an acrylic block and the StazOn ink, which you've got to keep it all nice and sealed up because it is a solvent-based ink and it can dry out. So I'm just going to put a border across the top and wipe off my stamp. Keep it covered, keep that ink covered as much as you can. It comes with like an interior cover and an exterior cover, so I try to keep the inside cover on as much as I can while I'm playing around with things and not using the ink. So that's just a word stamp, and again, make sure you ink it up really nicely, because if you don't want to have to stamp it twice, because you never get it in the same place twice. So I just put the word beloved across the bottom. These are all stamps that are available at Michael's or Joann's. That's where I get all my stamps, so you should be able to find them. This is Sari ribbon, which I get on Etsy, and it's spelled S-A-R-I, and it comes in these hanks of pieces that are all stitched together like that. So you just grab the piece you want and cut it out of the bunch. And I'm just gonna stick it through the top there and make a way to hang this on the wall. Now my base piece has been dried, but the Distress and the StazOn dry really fast. So you don't have to do anything special to dry your Distress, which is alcohol based, or your StazOn, which is solvent based. They dry almost instantly. So I like to make lark's knot or lark's loop. I don't know what that's called, but it's called a lark knot to hang things. It's my favorite way. So I put it through the hole at the top, and then I'm tying a knot Now, if you can't find that base, which was the recycled piece of like linoleum, you can use chipboard and just punch a hole at the top. And I believe that is 4 inches square. And the chipboard is available in lots of places. Okay, now my piece is out of the oven, and it's pretty freshly out of the oven, and I'm going to use my tonic shears to clean up the molded edges, because a lot of times in a mold like this that has lots of little protrusions, you'll need to clean it up a little bit. So I really love my tonic shears. They're heavy duty, but they are easy to use, and they work really well on my polymer clay. And if you do it when the piece is freshly baked and still warm, then it's a little bit more flexible, which makes it a little easier to do this without having to bend and manipulate like a hard clay that's been sitting for a while because it's cooled. So I recommend just taking your piece fresh out of the oven and either using your blade, or if you can find these shears, which I did find them at Michael's, they are awesome. Now I'm going to antique, and I'm going to use a glaze, but you can also use regular acrylic paint. And antiquing a piece really makes it look aged and helps sometimes to bring all the colors together, especially if you're using colors that are a little bit different or contrasty from each other. The antiquing makes it look finished. So you just get that color, and usually we use a medium to dark brown color and shove it down in the cracks, and then immediately wipe it off with a rag so that it only stays down in the cracks. All right, and then I'm going to use my Inca Gold to just add a little bit of highlighting on the edges and bring it all together. And you can use any kind of like a rub and buff metallic wax. You don't have to do this step, but I love my Inca Gold so much, and this green color is my favorite color, that I end up using it on everything. And you know, these things that you end up using on everything kind of become part of your signature look. So my things tend to always have a little touch of this metallic green on them, and that's how I like them. So I tend to keep it out on my desk and use it a lot. So I'm just touching the edges of that to bring it together and make everything look like it goes together. And that wax dries on its own very quickly. So now I'm just going to place this, and I'm going to use a urethane glue to attach it to the background. This is called Liquid Fusion, also available at your craft store, and it's the same type of glue as Gorilla Glue, if you've seen that before. It's just called urethane glue, and I like it because it sticks hard and fast, and it likes polymer clay, and it's good with other things like the background piece that I'm using. It sticks to wood, it sticks to paper. So you just hold it down for a minute and wait for that to dry. So thanks so much for joining me. Be sure to subscribe to our channel.